right, we will call the council meeting to order. As we stand for the pledge, I would like to ask, do we have any veterans in the crowd? Any veterans here? Mark, you can raise your hand a little bit higher if you'd like. So, Mark, or any other veterans, Mark, would you like to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to say to all the veterans, we want to recognize it's Veterans Day, and thank you all for serving our country. We really appreciate that, and it's nice to be able to have the chance to acknowledge that here in a council meeting. So thank you all for serving our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, take the roll.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Wakefield. Here. Hudson. Here. Kennedy.
Here.
Ruck. Here. Hall.
Here.
All right, it's that time for comments from citizens present. It's your opportunity to comment on any issue that is not on the council's agenda tonight that affects the city. If you do have something to say, please try to keep your comments brief. Try not to repeat other people's comments. I think that's it. I was going to ask if anybody has a comment, but it appears as
Me, I'm
yeah.
here. Hi, I'm Liz Malanofi, and I reside in Hudson. And I just came from the school board meeting where I spoke with them about something called direct pay, the Inflation Reduction Act funding that's available to nonprofits, schools, cities, and homeowners to help bring green energy into play. So I'm going to just pass these flyers out to you guys because our city's eligible for that too. So if you could pass these around, Randy. I don't think there's enough for everybody, but there's QR codes on there, so you can just scan those. So I work with an organization called Forward Together Wisconsin, and I've been traveling all over the state, checking out what school districts in particular are doing with this funding. Some really interesting things happening. We have Wisconsin's first net zero school down in the Oregon School District. We have a fleet of electric buses in Palmyra, which plug back into the grid at the end of the day, and then give that grid that much more energy from 5 to 8, those peak hours, and then they charge back up for the next day's runs. We have the district of Baraboo put solar panels in, a solar array in, and they're saving $44,000 a year. And so this is what schools are doing. I think one of the coolest things that I have seen is a district south of Madison where they have a sustainability director that they have hired for their district, and that sustainability director also does part of their time with the city as well. So it's a really collaborative partnership. It's a partnership between the district and the city. It makes a lot of sense because the tax rolls are so closely related, the school and the money that citizens are paying. So I think that also leverages a lot of resources. And I'm thinking that maybe it might be time for something like that in Hudson, or hopefully sometime soon. We could look at maybe a sustainability director for the city, or a sustainability committee, or an environmental committee, some organization, some entity that could help us look at best solutions for some of the things we're talking about. These IRA savings really, they reduce the return on investment of things like solar, which I know has always kind of been a sticking point for people when it comes to solar, geothermal, those big energy systems, heat pumps, all of that. ROI is usually pretty long, but this funding is really reducing that ROI. So, and I think of something that I think that you've brought up, Sarah, which is composting. I think a sustainability collaboration between the district and the city could present new options for something like a composting project. And the cool thing too about a lot of these projects, composting included, is that it's great for the citizens, also great for the students. I think those are always learning experiences for the students. So I'm just throwing that out there that you guys continue to explore some of those options and maybe consider something like that. I think that there was one factor that I read where there was a sustainability coordinator who had been hired for a district and ended up saving the district over $500,000 like annually in expenses, in energy. So it's definitely, takes a little bit of time to get there, I think, but it's definitely worth thinking about and looking at. So any questions for me?
Can't do that.
Yeah.
Sorry. But, yeah, thank you.
That's it.
Can't do technical questions and stuff.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Well, you guys have my email. You know where I am if you need anything.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, Liz, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. I'm Mary Claire Olson-Potter, President of the Hudson Chamber, and just want to give you a couple updates. We had the annual Spirit of St. Croix Art Festival event that drew 8,000 people down to Lakefront Park, so a great use of that park for that weekend, so hopefully some of you got a chance to come down and see that. We're kicking off the 38th Annual Hudson Christmas Tour of Homes, November 22nd through the 24th. So tickets are still available. We know this is a great weekend for the retailers and the restaurants. It's really kind of the kickoff to the holiday season, so hope you will join us for that. Santa returns to Hudson on Friday night, November 29th. That is the night that he will wave his wand and over 50,000 lights will turn on. He does wave his wand. Just saying. We'll turn on over 50,000 lights. We have close to 40 businesses, individuals, families, and thank you to the city for your partnership that are supporting the lights in the park this year. So we're hoping to add even more, and we're excited about having permanent lights on the beach house year-round too, which I think will be very great. And we appreciate our partnership with Save a Tree, a great chamber member who helps us do this every year. Small Business Saturday is Saturday, November 30th. Really important to think local when you think about shopping for folks, but support your local small businesses. This is a big day for them. This is a big season for them. Candlelight Stroll will be held on Friday, December 6th. We'll have over 300 luminaries lighting up the streets of downtown Hudson and carriage rides in Lakefront Park. And then Santa and his critters, again, will be down in Lakefront Park on December 7th. Hopefully it won't be as cold as last year, but we're there no matter what. And we get a great crowd to go see Santa for that. So, you know, events like this are great economic development drivers for this community. And they are very important, and it continues to get Hudson on the map to be a great place to live, work, visit, and do business. So I want to thank the Public Works and Parks Department for all their help that they give to us during all these events, especially Deb Andrews, Kevin Soltis, and JJ Barnes. They really help us get these events off the ground. So on behalf of the Hudson Chamber, I want to thank you for your continued partnership and look forward to working with you in the new year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Claire. Any other comments? Any other comments? Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll close that portion of the agenda. We have a presentation regarding a concept development proposal by Reuter Walton for the properties located at 307 Second Street and 100 Commercial Street, West 300 block of Second Street. Ari?
Great. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Ari Peretz. This is Bob Loken, and I'm also here with some members of the Gagnon family. We are excited to share an update of the project proposal that we've been working on now for 3.5 years at the block bordered by 2nd Street, 1st Street, Commercial, and Wisconsin. We have a variety of new images to share with you, but just to reorient, I believe all of the current members of the council were on the council the last time we presented this project, which was, believe it or not, over 2 years ago. I'll cover some of the events that have transpired between then and now, but just so you're familiar with the lot that we're talking about, it's here highlighted in red. It's the full city block. 2 years ago, there was one little sliver right by the old railroad depot that was left to complete the full assembly of the site. That's since been transacted, so the family now owns the full city block, including that little sliver that was previously owned by the railroad. We have been working, as I mentioned, for quite some time to create a project that we feel Hudson deserves. And while we were on the right track in many ways over the past few years, we also needed to take a step back this past year with some judicial rulings that impacted the future of the project. We had a major decision to make to try to figure out if we felt there was a way to overcome some of those challenges, or whether we couldn't overcome those challenges and we may have had to abandon the project. We put our heads together and found a way. Largely the goals of what we're trying to achieve are similar to what you've probably recall from the last times that we've been together. Creating a large-scale economic development opportunity in downtown, a legacy project both for the city and for the family who have been stewards of this property for many, 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 many years. Adding housing downtown to increase neighborhood vitality and safety. Those are still our primary objectives. The building itself has changed somewhat since the last version that you've seen, but that's still fundamentally what we're trying to accomplish. We also, one of the bullets that we added to this list that's slightly different from what we had put before, is a renewed and focused effort to ask for as little as possible as it relates to concessions from underlying zoning and regulatory authority. We felt like we had made a good case before. The city had agreed, in granting the variances that we requested. We now have to deal with a different environment. So what could we do to try to lessen the ask to the absolute bare minimum possible? And I think you'll see that in front of you in a moment. So some of this is recitation from things that you've heard before. This is a site that has many, many, many years of history, primarily industrial history. It's been fully built out for industrial uses going back over 100 years with a rail yard, a lumber yard, various kinds of industry-focused, dirty in a lot of ways, uses in the past. Today, it's a vacant Associated Bank branch. It still has the old railroad depot building that's mostly raw storage. It's got a small retail space on the corner, but otherwise the site is 95% kind of not using any economic value today. The Gagnon family, as I'm sure you know, has a long history as economic development drivers in the town and on this site, going back to the early part of the 1900s. And we felt like as we were trying to figure out how to bring this project into a new stage, it was important to also give it an identity. We had only ever referred to it as the downtown redevelopment project, the second and commercial project, the Gagnon site. How could we give this project an identity off of which to jump and build some excitement, build some momentum, but also kind of grounded in something more specific perhaps than it had been before? And so in honor of Ron and Mark's father, Bernadette, we decided to name the building the Bernadette and to give it some class, to give it some elegance, and also some simplicity. So we didn't take that lightly. We brainstormed, many, many different names and many different logos and many different kind of styles. But this is ultimately what our team felt was appropriate for the site. So you'll hear us now refer to this project as the Bernadette. That's where it came from. So broadly, what did we do? So this reference at the top to the 2023 Board of Appeals hearing, just to refresh your memory if you hadn't followed every step of the way, we were last in front of the Planning Commission and the Council over 2 years ago in 2022. Through 2023, we spent most of our time with the Board of Appeals working on our variance applications. We had 8 in total. In the summer of 2023, those 8 variances were all approved. They were then challenged in court shortly after. We'll get to what may still be remaining and what we don't have to deal with anymore in a second. But we had a series of those variances overturned, and so the changes that we focused on are directly related to those variances and trying to keep this ask to the lowest possible level as possible. Some might remember that we had been asking for a height variance. We've been able to take a significant chunk of height out of the building, over 7 feet. So now the building, all sides and in the middle, any point that you measure it is strictly compliant with the 45-foot height limit imposed by the City of Hudson and by the Wisconsin DNR. In taking the building's height down, and we'll show you exactly how we were able to do that, we took mass out of the building. That represents about a 12% reduction in just built material from a 2.45 FAR to a 2.15 FAR. We reconfigured some of the flow where units and where amenity spaces are, and we took what was 2 levels of parking and made it 1 level of parking and lengthened it, which got us some more efficiency in the garage. As you might recall, we can't dig deeper because of the water table level, so we took what was the lowest level garage and just spread it out. So now it's still hidden, you can't see it from any side of the street, it's still very much enclosed by the slope of Second Street down to First, but it just has 1 entrance now instead of 2, and it's accessed from the south on Wisconsin instead of commercial. We evaluated having it access off of commercial instead, but the grade didn't work to line up a driveway. So I'll have Bob come up and talk about some of the design changes that we made. While he's standing here, I'll just kind of tick through some of these applications, and then we'll show you some visuals so you understand exactly what we're trying to do. We were able to rezone the site with your support from industrial to downtown business use roughly last winter, so at the beginning part of this year. So the rezoning that this project needed is done. We don't need to go back to that. There were 3 variances that were approved in the summer of 2023 that were not impacted by the court's decision. 1 to exceed the minimum lot area per dwelling unit, 1 to reduce the number of trees, and 1 to allow an elevator underrun below the flood elevation. Those are done. We don't need to revisit them again. There's a series of things that we are still going to need to revisit, and we'll explain exactly why. But that's basically where we sit today. We felt it important to come to the council and give everyone an update and show you kind of what we've been working on so that you knew we were still here and we were still alive and kicking. And that you had a preview of this before we went into a new formal application to the Board of Appeals to deal with any remaining approvals that we may need. So with that.
Thanks, Ari. Thanks, Mayor and Commissioners. As Ari said, the main thing that we did is we were able to reduce the height of the building. We think that was one of the biggest lifts that we had, and it's one of the biggest controversies of the development. In this graphic, you can see on top is the previous proposal. This is an elevation, a south elevation, and then on the bottom is our revised proposal. That heavy dashed line on the bottom elevation is simply the outline of the previous elevation, so you can see the comparison. We removed a floor of the building. We took the 4th floor off, and as Ari said, reduced the overall area of the building by about 12%. The overall organization of the building remains very much the same. The attitude toward urban design remains the same. We intend this building to really be an extension south of the traditional downtown, traditional pedestrian-oriented downtown that exists right now. The building will engage with the street. Lots of windows and storefronts and direct entrances into the building, very much like a traditional turn of the century downtown. The big thing that we did, as Ari mentioned, in omitting, we had a small partial level of parking at level 1. We were able to take the vast majority of those spaces and put them on the basement level, which I think is the best place for parking in an urban location. And what that allowed us to do was to free up a larger portion of level 1 for spaces for people, apartments, amenity spaces. One of the nice things I think about this organization is now all of the amenity spaces are on level 1. When you enter the building on foot from 2nd Street, you enter into the lobby. The fitness room is there. Previously, we would have to go up to level 2 for the club room and the outdoor amenity spaces. Now it all flows on 1 level. And then level 2, very much the same as before, but we gained some efficiencies in this level. Level 3, very much the same as before, and level 4 is gone. And we've got just some before and afters, just to remind you what the proposal looked like before. This is the previous proposal. This is the current proposal from more or less the same angle. You can, if I flip back and forth between these, you can kind of see the change, largely a reduction in height of the building at the highest portion of the site. It's another vantage point. This is the previous proposal, looking up the hill from the river, from First Street. You can see wings, 4-story wings on the edge. In the distance, you can see there was an extra story that stepped back. And then you can also see in the middle was a 2-story townhome expression. The current proposal omits that top floor, and like we said, we reduced the size of level 1 by moving the parking down. You can see those townhomes that face First Street are now 1 level, so that outdoor amenity space is closer to street level. And then there's another view. We worked a little bit on materials and proportions. I think not only is this building smaller, but I think the proportions are a little bit more in keeping with a traditional downtown. The previous first floor along Second Street was more of a double height space. I think this design is more in keeping with the scale of the historic buildings that you see in Hudson. But again, the materials are similar. It's all you see right here is masonry, brick, windows. There's a lot of attention to detail, a lot of ways to engage the street, a lot of transparency, but from inside to out, lots of ways to enter the building and for the public to engage with the building. This last image is a view from First Street, looking back up toward the hill. And the thing that's, I think, illustrative about this view is just showing how the building, its attitude as it addresses the street on Second Street is much more urban, much more town-oriented. And as it moves down the hill and opens to the river, it has a more open, more residential character. There are large patios that face First Street. There's landscaped area and patios. So it just has that feel. It goes from a very downtown feel down to the river to a slightly more residential feel. And that's our presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I'll just add a couple other things that are probably on your mind. So before we got into really detailing this design, we looked at just floor plans and basic elevations with the Wisconsin DNR, right? They were a key factor in reviewing and approving and project before, and now they have to be again for a variety of reasons. So we said, before we do any of this, let's go to them and see what their response is. They've got new leadership now, so individual people are different than the folks who were involved the last go around, so it was really just a start from scratch view. And while they couldn't opine officially, because they can't do that unless you officially apply, which we weren't ready to do it, as I mentioned, it was very clear that this design and the changes that we had made were being viewed favorably by them. So that was my interpretation of it. We also made every effort that we could to meet with the other folks who were involved in this. The Wild Rivers Conservancy, played a role in the project's evolution to this date. And so we reached out to them too. And we said, hey, here's our thoughts on how we might redesign this project. What do you think? And our conversations with them are ongoing. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't go into this with any kind of blinders on, where there was opposition in the past, where there was some resistance or inertia. We said, let's just try to address that head on and be collaborative and open up this project to different ideas. We think we've done a lot to soften the project and to help it fit in and to improve it, but to the extent that other folks, whether it's the DNR or the Wild Rivers or anybody else, has ideas to further improve upon this, we're open to it. We haven't applied yet to the Board of Appeals to deal with any remaining variances that we may need. This is where the project stands as of today. So we're happy to answer questions or comments, concerns.
Questions?
Did you get any feedback from the other party, the Wild River?
Not officially. We've been,
Favorably, unfavorably, give us a flavor of the conversation or no? Or
we've been in touch with their executive director since the summer. And we had asked to basically do with them exactly what we're doing with you. Just be able to come and share the project and share the changes, and that hasn't happened yet. We're hoping that will happen at some point. We've kind of just given it an open invitation, but we haven't received any concrete feedback one way or another.
I have a question or comment. One of the issues, I know you do a lot of urban planning. We don't feel like we're an urban town, or I don't feel like it's an urban location. But I realize it's just semantics, and appreciate your approach of making a smaller building. If I saw the slide correctly, it still has the same number of units. Is that correct?
Slightly fewer. We have 109 to 107.
Down to 105 now or something? Okay, thank you. Well, this is a question kind of for our council and staff, because I need to get educated about this a bit. But I understand that you're, as part of our business district, you've, I'm not going to say you, but any apartment building that came into our business district does not have to meet the same parking requirements that they would have to do elsewhere in town. If I'm not mistaken, that has been a decision. I don't know if that's an ordinance or in our zoning. But my question is, my concern is we're losing a lot of commercial space to residential. And I was under the impression that originally, I know you did present several years ago, and I did appreciate your design. It's very attractive, a lot of hard work done to make it very appealing, and I appreciate that. But I'm worried about losing that much commercial space, and I thought originally, again, back in the day, that perhaps you were going to provide more commercially available space, retail space on the main floor. It looks like your intent is mostly like your rental management office, the athletic center that's for residents, et cetera. Am I understanding that correctly, or will there be anything available that others can use?
Yes and no. So we do have commercial space in the project. So I just pulled up the floor plan on the right is the ground level plan. The green box on the top right, that's commercial space. That's publicly accessible retail. We don't have a user identified for that yet.
Sure.
It could be anything at this point. And we have the ability to provide more if there's market demand for it. So you see that there's 3 residential units as you go just underneath that space. Those 3 units could also be commercial. And we've programmed them as residential for now because it's a little bit easier to have them start the planning as residential and then say, oh, we've got a retailer that wants to take that space too. We'll just make it retail space instead. It's easier to go that way than the other way. But based off of market demand, if we see more retail interest than just this 2,200 feet on the corner, we've got the ability to make more.
Okay.
Potentially double it.
Potentially double
sure.
the 2,200.
And my point to our council and staff and residents is that we've kind of made a commitment to not expand our retail district out into the neighborhoods. There is a movement occasionally, a small business, and so we only have so much space that's really in our downtown, and if we want to keep it vital and allow new businesses to come in that development, I do have concern about losing an entire block that could have continued to grow that sector, because we again sort of made that commitment to not encroach into neighborhoods. So I just putting that out there as a concern of mine. So I would welcome the use of the main floor for retail. I think there would be, I'm assuming there might be interest, but again, you're the experts on that.
Yeah, and we can basically let the market decide. I mean, we think that there's interest for this 2,200 feet, which is why we programmed it in, and we're not so sure that there's interest for more than that, but if there is, we can change it. We can expand the commercial space. Basically, as the project kind of matures in the public domain and potential retailers become aware of it, we start to have those conversations and figure out if there's a market for it, great. If there's not, we've got a backup.
I guess I would say one of the absolute best amenities for a residential building is successful, well-loved commercial space. I think one of the worst things that could happen is empty commercial space that goes unrented. So that's really the balance. If there is demand and we do get interest, I think the building, not only the perception of it, but probably even the performance of the building could increase with successful, well-loved commercial spaces.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
A couple of questions, if I could. First off, on that very last slide, the top of the roof looks like it might be a green rooftop. So are you planning on vegetation in that?
Yeah, so a good question, Councilmember Bruck. I'll go to the aerial, which is the floor plan of the street level. So it's a little bit hard to see, but there's in the middle, the middle square is labeled unoccupied green roof. And the intent is to have some programmed active space on either side of it, so that you have kind of like a garden-y feel space in between. It could be accessible to tenants possibly, like for actual gardening. It could just be sort of prairie, meadow, grasses sort of deal, but it's intended to have vegetation on it.
Great. And I noticed, I think it was your first slide where you talked about some of your commitments. You mentioned about working with local contractors, WBEs and MBEs. Are you going to make a commitment of what percentage of your spend on this project will be to those entrepreneurs?
We certainly can.
Okay.
Open to those discussions.
All right. And then just as a point of reference, I think the studios, you refer to them as alcoves. Is that correct? Do you have, I believe in the past we talked about market rate rent. Do you have a sense on, and I understand it's probably early to have those, but kind of what that range would be for future residents?
Yeah, I mean, I anticipate that the alcoves would start in like the $1,300 a month range. And the biggest, 2-bedroom plus 10, bordering 3 bedrooms, like these big units on the top level overlooking the river would be more than that.
And how many parking spaces are there beneath the building?
121.
21.
So there's 107 spaces, so there's, okay. Or 107 units, okay. All right, I think those are my questions at the moment. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you, guys. Great to
Thank you
see
so much. Thank you.
All right, next up is the public hearing, the budget hearing presentation and final budget approval.
You gotta take a minute. Okay, got it. All right. Well, I appreciate it. We started this process back in August, starting to work on it, and the first presentation of the budget was to finance back on September 3rd, I believe. 3rd? Yep, okay. This is our final budget hearing and hopefully adoption of the levy amount that we have on here. Start off, give a quick history. We had the budget schedule. We are finally in step on November 11th, 2024, which is a public hearing. We've been through, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 different meetings where we've had discussions regarding the budget and the budget totals. And now we're looking at turning in a final ordinance mill rate to the county by the end of the week. Considerations. I won't go over all these. We've gone through them. I don't know if anybody's got a question on them, I can stop and answer the questions, but I think we've gone through these. They've been in all the presentations. Okay, so one thing I do want to point out is the budget amount, the mill rate has changed along with the percentage. Originally, we were talking about 9.9% increase to the total, the property tax total mill rate. We are actually at 12.14%. And there's a reason for those changes. Now, the mill rate's gone down, so there's less per 100,000 of assessed valuation that'll be charged. But the mill rate at 4.88 is $488 per 100,000. Okay, we were up over $500, 503 it was, $503 per 100,000 valuation. The reason for that is the estimated assessed value, well, actually, the estimated assessed value has gone down, but we took out the TID amount that normally would have been paid, or normally gets paid through the TID values. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, Sam. I'm trying to explain it a little better than what I am, but go ahead, take
Yeah,
that.
ultimately, when we take the assessed value, or the total levy amount, we take our debt levy and our operating levy and spread that over the assessed value. The TID pays into the TED district, but does not pay for any operating expenses or debt levy. So that got removed from the calculation.
So originally, we were including in the calculations. Then the other piece was, today, the reason why the percentage goes up from 9.9% up to 12.14% change is our estimated assessed value. The estimated assessed value, originally, we were projecting a number of 2.5 billion for the estimated assessed valuation, and that was received by our assessor. The assessor's actual amount came in just this morning at 2.448. It's a $52 million reversal or drop from what we were originally predicting. So, unfortunately, there are other communities that kind of followed the same path that were led by our assessors, unfortunately. And some of them have already passed their budget, so they're scrambling to do a emergency meeting. Fortunately, we had ours today and were able to catch it before we went through with that approval. But what happened was they missed the Act 12 difference of the personal property piece. They added that in, expecting it was going to be the standard run. They should have taken that out. So when they were giving us our estimated values, they were off by 34 million total. The other pieces that came off that, the prediction was from our assessors. The prediction was that the manufacturing property was going to go up 12%, the same rate as the residential and commercial piece. It did not. It only went up 3%, rather than the overall 12%. So between those two numbers, it ended up with 52 million in total reduction over what we were predicting. So that's why there's a percent difference. Now, what means, all right, to the average home with $400,000 home, you're looking at a bill increase this year over last year's taxes of $194.97. Over that entire bill, 25% of that is the responsibility of the city, 17% of that is the county, 2% is the Northwoods Tech, and 56% of that is your school district. So, school district pays a majority of that amount. Yeah, go ahead.
Just one quick note that the St. Croix County budget is still in draft form until tomorrow evening.
Yeah. So right now, we have them at 17% of the overall. That could go up or could go down, depending upon what they approve tomorrow night. What does that mean on the dollar? Well, taking a dollar split, every dollar of taxes, 25% of it is the city's tax portion, 56 is school district, 17 is St. Croix, and $2 2 cents on the dollar is Northwood tax. That's kind of a nice little graph to tell you how it's all split up. And that really didn't change much over last year. Last year, the city's portion was 23. We're up to 25 of that overall tax bill. All right, police. Police and fire is your largest portion of where the expenditures go, along with public works. So public works, parks and other things, roads, sewers. No, that isn't including the sewer. But roadways, things like that, detention, retention ponds. That's all in your public works piece, and then fire and sewers and public protection. So you can see a large portion of your bill, probably that's got to be close to 67% of your bill goes to those expenditures. Something to think about. We always wonder, how do we compare to neighboring jurisdictions? I know that's always a big question. Looking at how we're faring, City of Hudson, our mill rate is still lower than what the taxing jurisdictions had last year. So depending upon where they fall in this year, you can see there was a change for Baldwin. They're up at 7.8, so that's $780 per 100,000. New Richmond is at, did I say Baldwin or New Richmond?
Yeah.
Okay, I did say Baldwin.
Yeah.
New Richmond's at $516 per 100,000, and City of River Falls is at $588 per 100,000. So even if they edged up next year, we're still a good amount below where other jurisdictions are. Village of North Hudson, you can see a big drop there. It's because of reassessments that were done to the village in the Village of North Hudson. So they had a reval, and that dropped their mill rates. We are expecting that the city will have a revaluation. Mill rates will drop, but if values are up based on that reassessment, your tax bill is roughly the same, or could be roughly be the same. Okay, that's just a nice little line chart to show you what is our mill rates. Same thing as the table before. Those are the numbers. Here's how it is on bar graph. Line chart, bar graph. No, not a line chart, it's bar graph. So you can see us steadily increasing over time. The last 4 years, you had some changes in New Richmond. You had a big bump in Baldwin. You had a fairly steady or a little bit lower in River Falls, and then you see the reassessment in North Hudson. All right, on to capital improvements. We know that there's 2 large capital improvement projects, and we're expecting the increase. That's a large portion of the increase. I almost forgot to mention that. Yeah, one of the largest portions of our increase that we saw, the almost 12%, a little over 12% increase. Probably about 10% of that, 9 to 10% of that is all in these projects, the capital improvement borrowing. We didn't borrow for the capital improvements that we're doing, those 2 large projects, the police department and the other, public works building, which of course we do need. We wouldn't see as large a jump. Okay, we would probably have seen closer to 3% if we stayed with just operating costs and didn't do those projects at all. So, but we do see that we're going to increase to about 2032 on this chart, and then we start paying down that debt, and it starts to taper off. That doesn't include anything that property values go up, the equalized assessed values go up. Doesn't include rate changes, right? Right now we're seeing a slight decrease in bond rates and things starting to climb down. We could do refinance some of those old debt. So those are little things that we can do as we go along to try to bring down that peak that you see. But for now, this is what we're faced with. This is what we're heading towards. Okay. I guess this is in the sheets that I gave you, and it's in the presentation. It's just that police and public works building, those are the main dollars. I went through this before, I guess, with everybody. If you want me to do it again, I can do that. but we're looking at Public Works building and Police Department total together for both projects. If we had built new, is a $38 million project, and those were projections from a couple of years ago, right? So I would imagine those projections would even be higher today if we built new. Renovating the buildings, you can see the square footage difference. It's $231 to renovate for both of those projects. Here was $362 if we built brand new. So we are saving a significant amount of money by renovating the two existing buildings. By cost difference, you're looking at the Rosemont facility was $362 a square foot. The Oakdale facility was at $413 a square foot. And again, Hudson's two facilities being renovated is at $231 a square foot. So again, we're saving quite a bit by doing renovations as opposed to new constructions. And that's it. The capital improvements, we did not change anything. Nobody had any questions, any changes to the capital improvements. So they sit where we had them way back to September, I think, 3rd or so. I think no, there's no changes since then. So that's what we have. That is the overall budget. Next step would be to approve the budget and allow us to send the forms over to the county.
Questions? Anybody? We have a motion.
I'll move we approve the budget for 2025.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Discussion?
Wait a,
Do you want a number 4?
no, Sam just caught it. I'm glad he did. We do need, I just did the presentation, we do need to open public hearing to hear if there's anybody that wants to comment.
Good point.
Could have made a mistake there, yes.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thanks,
Thank
Sam. Good catch.
All right, so this is a public hearing. It is your opportunity to comment on the budget. If you have any comments, we have Zoom open for this.
We do not.
Okay.
Yep. It would have been here in person.
Anybody have a comment? Any comment? Any comment? Any comment?
Move to close.
Second.
Have a motion and second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Public hearing is closed.
Reaffirm my motion to accept the appropriations number 14-23, 2025.
Okay. Second. Motion is second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Thank you, Brent and Sam. Consent agenda.
Approve the meeting minutes from October 21st, 2024 regular council meeting. Approve claims in the amount of $2,070,142.24. Approve an agreement between the Hudson Police Department and the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office to provide officers for an emergency response team. Approve fence easement agreement at 1100 Juniper Way, Greg and Sandra Smits. Approve mail or appointment of Jennifer Haas to the St. Croix Economic Development Corporation Loan Review Committee. And approve mayor appointment of Pete Miller to the Hudson Urban Forestry Board.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion is second to approve the consent agenda. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
Wakefield?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Motion's approved. Consent agenda is approved. Discussion possible.
Can we stop for a second? I've got a question about the budget. It's an ordinance. Were we supposed to suspend the rules before we voted for that?
Is that an ordinance?
It is an ordinance.
Oh, yes, you're right. Good catch. Thank you.
Move to suspend the rules.
Well,
We've had lots of readings.
but do we need to suspend the rules if it's, this is our second or third?
Passed and it was unanimous, yeah.
But
You
is
had
that?
multiple readings?
Yes.
Yeah, then
Okay.
then you don't have to suspend.
Okay, so we don't, okay.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I thought so.
That's
We
what
had
I,
4.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, though.
He's right on
I
it.
thought so. He's on it, he's got the rules.
Yep. All right, discussion possible action on amending municipal code 201 massage business. Chief.
So we all created the massage business ordinance, it was a couple years ago probably. While doing background checks, we realized that we kind of missed a pretty important step in the ordinance, and that if you have a masseur or someone who performs the massages that wouldn't necessarily pass your background check, what's the point of having an ordinance? Because you can't enforce anything, right? So we tried to figure out a way to hold background checks not only accountable to, or not, to hold the business owners and license applicators not only accountable, but also the people working for the establishment. And that's where these amendments come into play. Did I explain that correctly, Nick?
Yeah, that's exactly right. This amendment just fills the hole of requiring background checks on those that are performing massage services, and at the same time, it makes it unlawful for those license holders to employ anybody that has not passed a background check. So just filling in a gap in the ordinance.
Okay, so this is a second reading, correct? So we do not need to suspend the rules.
This is the first reading. This is the first reading.
What, didn't we have this last time?
No.
No.
Oh. Was that public safety? Is that what I'm confused?
So do you want to move to suspend the rules?
I will move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion and second to suspend the rules. Roll call?
Marset?
Yes.
Wakefield?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Motion's approved. Rules are suspended.
Move to approve ordinance, oh, there's no number on this,
It's 1224.
1224.
I'll second that.
Motion second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Thanks, Chief. City will go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.85, sub 1, sub G, to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, in order to discuss claim from individual regarding May 18th, 2023 traffic stop and canine search.
Move to go into closed session?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to go into closed session. Roll call?
Marset?
Yes.
Wakefield?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Motion's approved. We are now in closed session. We'll step across the hall. Open session.
Move to follow the recommendation of the attorney for the resolution of the matter discussed in closed session.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. The one thing that I would like to say here is I want to thank Becky and our clerk staff and all the other volunteers and staff members that we had that helped out in the election process that we just went through. I know it's a lot of work. I know that you guys put in a lot of time, and I want to thank you.
Yay. Hey, Becky.
And just to follow up, their work is not completely done. We were one of the random 10%ers that were audited for our machines.
Audit, so.
So we do have a little more work to continue. Next week, I believe, right?
Has to be completed by the 25th, but it depends if there's a recount, so
Yep.
we're in limbo for a couple more days.
Yep. So
And maybe
still not
some
over,
numbers.
but good work.
What's that?
Then maybe some numbers, just a snapshot of what was.
Yeah, I'll get that on my next. The city of Hudson was a 96% turnout with the election
Oh
day
my gosh.
registrations as well. That includes that.
Yeah.
So 3,000 people literally came through council chambers for in-person absentee voting.
Wow.
9 days.
Well,
Crazy.
So we're tired.
Parking designation.
it's a good thing we had a
Oh,
nice new
yes.
ramp for
I
them.
was gonna say.
Yeah, that's right. There. Got our new entrance.
Don't forget the parking designation.
Your bracket.
Oh, yeah.
The,
Oh,
Last
yes,
item,
you have
yes.
that? I did
it's,
sign it.
it's
Is it
in your, yeah.
It's in the packet.
It's in my packet that I got over there.
I don't know that
It's the last page.
I don't know that it was signed.
Here, you can read it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right there, there it is.
Not a signable
Great.
proclamation
All right, so pursuant to Municipal Code, Chapter 235-36, I, the mayor, shall approve courtesy ticket days for promotional and seasonal events. I, Mayor Rich O'Connor, approve and authorize 3-hour free parking at the downtown parking meters and assistance of is that right? Issuance, not good. And issuance of courtesy tickets from 8 p.m., or no, 8 p.m. Wednesday, from the evening, okay. Wednesday, November 27th, 2024, until 10 a.m. on Thursday, January 2nd, 2025.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks, Mike. Brent? All right,
Move
anybody else?
adjourn.
No? Okay.
Second.
Motion is second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.